Ms. White, you are furious that your on-again, off-again boyfriend of 7.5 years got you pregnant and refuses to do anything for your daughter. You say he better step up and be a daddy when today's results prove what you have always known, that he is Michaela's biological father. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
The courtroom crackled with tension as Ms. White stood before the judge, her body tight with anger and hurt. She was demanding accountability from Mr. Holly, the man she claimed fathered her 3-year-old daughter, Michaela. For nearly 8 years, they had tumbled through an unstable relationship, and today's DNA results would finally end the denials.
You are overwhelmed.
I'm overwhelmed because I've been through too much by myself. And it's like, you can't live your life and not take care of your responsibilities. Like, I'm trying my hardest to do it, and it's been almost 3 years, and it's getting harder.
From the defendant's side, Mr. Holly fired back with barely concealed scorn. To him, Ms. White's claims were nothing but a desperate fantasy. He dismissed their relationship as a fleeting 3-year affair. In his eyes, there was no need for a DNA test. Another man, he asserted, had fathered Michaela, and he was ready to show proof that today would not go the way Ms. White had so tearfully hoped.
Your Honor, we was living together. I was transporting cars from here to Miami twice a week. I would leave and go to Miami, come back probably on a Wednesday, leave out again. I would see her in passing.
And so at that time, you did not feel like you and Ms. White were in a committed relationship?
But it was Ms. White's own admission that sent ripples through the courtroom. She revealed that during one particularly low moment, she had confided in another man, physically and emotionally. It happened during a fight with Mr. Holly. Still, she maintained that Mr. Holly was the most likely father, but that one slip-up cast a long, dark shadow over her certainty.
Staying in his house, but we was on bad terms. And I called myself, confiding in someone else. I had I was with someone else that night.
You had sex with somebody else?
Yes, ma'am. And at that time, I didn't think I could get pregnant.
Mr. Holly seized on that moment of weakness, reminding the court that this was not the first time Ms. White had claimed to be pregnant. Twice before, she had announced pregnancies that turned out to be false alarms. So when she came to him a third time, he didn't believe her. Even when he agreed to meet her at the doctor's office, the minute he heard the positive result, he felt no joy, only suspicion.
When did you find out? How did you find out?
First of all, Your Honor, she had already cried wolf before. I'm pregnant. She done did this on 2 different occasions. I'm pregnant and she wasn't pregnant. Okay, so this last time, which was probably some months or maybe a year later, she did it again. I'm pregnant. And this time she actually was pregnant, but she had been telling me.
Ms. White shook her head bitterly at his version of events. She remembered that day with raw pain, recalling how embarrassed she had been as the nurse awkwardly asked if she needed help confronting him. She had been humiliated not just as a woman, but as a mother-to-be, sitting there alone and abandoned. From that moment on, she decided she could no longer count on Mr. Holly for anything.
This girl, this woman ain't pregnant by me. She can't be pregnant. The doctor said, oh my God, do you want me to get on him for you?
No, she
said that is embarrassing. Yeah. That is embarrassing. I sat down, I felt belittled. I sat down and I sat there and I told myself from that moment on.
The judge pressed further, asking whether Mr. Holly had attempted to be involved in Michaela's life after she was born. His answer was cold and blunt. No, he hadn't. He hadn't even seen the child except for a glimpse of a photograph. He made it clear that he had moved on with his life, entering into another relationship and firmly shutting the door on any involvement with Ms. White and her daughter.
Not had any relationship with Michaela, the baby, for the past 2 years.
I ain't never seen her. I seen her on a picture.
And you have moved on with your life because you are certain that she is not your biological child.
That's right.
She admitted to sleeping with another man around the time of conception, a man named Parker, and then came the bombshell. She'd lied to both men. She told Holly that Parker was the father after a DNA test, which never happened. Then she told Parker that Holly had been ruled out, another lie. Why? Well, whatever her reasons, the court needs to hear from Parker.
And when I looked at the picture, I've seen that she was mine because I've seen how she looked.
What is the evidence you're holding?
The picture that was sent to me.
Let me see that. So you got this picture on your phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Despite the emotional storm swirling around her, Ms. White stayed focused on what mattered most to her. her daughter. All she wanted was for Micaiah to have the support she deserved. She needed the court to see that, whatever mistakes had been made in the past, her daughter had been born into this world through no fault of her own and deserved to have both parents fighting for her.
Biological father, but you told Mr. Parker you had a DNA test with Mr. Holly and he was not the biological father.
Yes, Your Honor, and I said that due to the fact that Mr. Holly disclaimed my daughter from the beginning. So when Mr. Parker started claiming her as his child, I just like...
As the tension in the room reached its breaking point, the judge, now visibly skeptical of both sides, called for the results to be brought forward. The courtroom fell into a breathless silence as the envelope was placed firmly into the judge's hands. The judge prepared to open the results, ready to settle, once and for all, the bitter war that had consumed both lives for far too long.
Mr. Parker, you are not the father.
My Lord.
Are we ready for the next result?
Let's do it.
Mr. Holly, you are the father.
Right, exactly.
Mr. Jordan, you claim the defendant tricked you into signing her daughter's birth certificate and being a daddy. But 2 years later, you were told that another man is her biological father. You opened your case because you want DNA proof you are not the father so you can get your name removed from the birth certificate. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
The courtroom buzzed with silent tension as Mr. Jordan stood, gripping the edge of his seat. His face was a hardened mask of betrayal. He had come to paternity court with one goal: to sever the lie that had kept him shackled for 2 long years. Signing that birth certificate had been an act of love and trust, but now, all he wanted was DNA proof that Caitlin wasn't his daughter.
His daughter, she tricked me into thinking that the other guy had done got a paternity test on Caitlin, because she told me, oh, he already got one, and you know what I'm saying? That's why I know it's just you. She tricked me into thinking that family was something sacred.
Ms. Heim, however, refused to back down. She admitted she had been unfaithful once, but insisted with fiery certainty that Mr. Jordan was Caitlin's biological father. She described years of fruitless intimacy with another man, only to become pregnant soon after meeting Mr. Jordan. Her voice trembled as she defended herself against the mounting accusations she said she had endured from both their families.
I had sex with him one time, but we've been messing around for 7 years, and I never became pregnant. I met Chris, and all of a sudden I came pregnant. So I know I'm Chris's father.
As Mr. Jordan listened, the judge pressed deeper, sensing there was more buried under the surface. Ms. Heim explained that the other encounter had happened just once in April. Though timelines blurred and logic wavered, Ms. Heim believed that Mr. Jordan was Caitlin's father. Her voice cracked when she shared how Caitlin now asked if her daddy still loved her. It was a question no mother should have to answer.
Because my daughter, she's old enough to realize she came and asked me, does my dad still love her? It hurt me so bad.
She asked you, does my daddy still love me?
Mr. Jordan remembered cutting Caitlin's umbilical cord, singing to her the night she was born. Late-night cravings and every messy, beautiful moment of fatherhood he had embraced without hesitation. Growing up without parents himself, he had sworn Caitlin would never feel the same emptiness. Loving her had made him a better man, and the idea that it was all based on a lie felt like a dagger twisting in his chest.
I love that little girl, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was there, I cut the umbilical cord, I passed out. I was there, you know what I'm saying? I sung happy birthday when she was born, you know what I'm saying? I watched the little nasty little afterbirth. Horrible, you know what I'm saying? But I was there.
So you were there for the whole birth and the
Everything.
nasty afterbirth.
Everything.
But the truth had a way of clawing its way to the surface. It had started innocently, an argument between Ms. Heim and a family member. Words flew, secrets spilled, and out of the chaos came an accusation that would shatter everything. It wasn't just idle gossip. Soon, a phone was pulled out, and evidence was thrust into his trembling hands.
This is where it goes wrong. Her and the family member gets like an altercation or whatnot, like an argument. It wasn't even an altercation, it was an argument. And it was like they started like throwing dirt on each other, you know what I mean? So she said something about this family member's in front of this family member's boyfriend or whatever. So the family member turned around and was like, well, why you ain't told Chris that he's not Caitlin's dad?
One image was all it took to tear apart 2 years of fatherhood. On the screen, another man, Santavius Knight, sat proudly with Caitlin on his lap. Mr. Jordan's heart slammed against his ribs. How did this happen? How had he been the last to know? How could someone else share these intimate moments with the little girl he had loved with everything he had? The pictures told a story words never could.
Have evidence.
Oh, let me see that. So you think you having a good life, and then they get into an argument when Caitlin's too, a family member of Miss Heim, and they start going off on one another.
And then like everything just comes right out right then. And I'm like,
And
it
so-
hit me.
Ms. Heim admitted Centavius was the man she had slept with once, and yes, she had dropped Caitlin off with family members who might have taken her to see him without her knowledge. But Mr. Jordan wasn't buying it, and neither was the judge. When pressed harder, Ms. Heim finally admitted that there had been at least one time when she had dropped Caitlin off to visit Centavius directly.
When did anybody get the time to even take my daughter over to somebody else's house? Like how am I the last person?
Do you know who this man is, Miss Heim?
That's the guy I had sex one time with when I met Chris. That's the one I was having sex since 2010.
So what was Caitlin doing?
The courtroom grew colder with every word. Mr. Jordan objected fiercely, his voice shaking with anger. Why was Centavius calling Caitlin his baby? Why were there photos of them together? The judge's eyes narrowed. Something wasn't adding up. Then Centavius was brought into court, and his testimony was even more devastating.
To this little girl as your daughter.
Yes.
Do you believe Caitlin is your daughter?
Yes, that's my baby. She told me when she got pregnant, she like, I'm pregnant. I'm like, what you telling me for? She like, well, it's not Chris, cause me and Chris been together a year and a half, and we ain't got pregnant. Soon you touch me, I get pregnant.
The judge was even more shocked at the evidence, her skepticism now plain. It was clear the web of lies had grown too tangled for words to undo. Only science could offer clarity now. The envelope containing the DNA results trembled slightly in her hand as she opened it, the weight of the truth about to land like a hammer on everyone present.
The biological father is Mr. Jordan. Ms. Seuss, you have dragged the defendant into court today because you say it's his mother's fault he's denying your 10-month-old daughter, Aleliana. You claim when the DNA results prove he is the father, you want the defendant's name added to her birth certificate. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
The tension in the courtroom was thick as Ms. Seuss took the stand, clutching the hope that today would end the questions surrounding her daughter, Aleliana. For 10 long months, she had fought to prove that Mr. Payne was the father. Her voice didn't shake as she declared her mission: to add Mr. Payne's name to the birth certificate once the DNA results confirmed what she had always known.
So jealous and insecure about himself. Like, everywhere I go, he think I'm doing something. If I go to the store, I gotta be back in a certain time. Like, he's just crazy.
Yana, she lying. She been out there, Facebook messages.
You guys, they're both jealous. They're both jealous.
Mr. Payne detailed the first cracks of doubt that formed early in their relationship. On the very first day they spoke, Ms. Seuss allegedly went to the movies with another man. Screenshots of Facebook conversations with ex-boyfriends haunted Mr. Payne's memory. Ms. Seuss admitted she had gone to the movies but insisted nothing inappropriate had happened. In Mr. Payne's mind, though, the damage was already done.
The first day after we started talking, she went to the movies with some other guy. Facebook messages telling her ex she love him, this, and that.
But the next day you did something with another girl and you was just telling your ex you love her, so what's the difference?
Mr. Payne explained that he and Ms. Seuss had rekindled their relationship, and just 2 weeks later, she claimed she was pregnant. His mother voiced even deeper skepticism, reminding everyone that during previous pregnancies, Ms. Seuss had been practically glued to her son, leaving no room for suspicion. This time, however, the couple's constant breakups and quick reconciliations raised serious questions.
Because the first time she was pregnant twice. The first time she got pregnant, I knew without a doubt it was his because she didn't go anywhere. I couldn't get rid of her. This time they kept breaking up. They break up so much, and they were broken up. I think y'all were broken up for about a month or something like that.
Ms. Seuss fought back, insisting they had unprotected sex immediately after reconciling, making the pregnancy not only possible but likely. She maintained that she was honest from the start, even agreeing that Mr. Payne should get a DNA test to ease his doubts. Kenyatta backed this up, admitting that both sides had played petty games with each other during their relationship.
I'm not innocent,
This is
but
what
I'm not
they
gonna
do.
put no
Me
baby
neither.
on
I'm
something
not
that's not
innocent
yours.
either. I'm not innocent either.
I had-
But we
And
slept
I want to
unprotected
ask you to
for a
be
year.
there through a pregnancy if it's not your child.
But I was there
And as
through the
far as
pregnancy.
But you really weren't.
But I wasn't though.
The supermarket incident added fuel to the fire. Kenyatta testified that a complete stranger had approached her, warning her to push for a DNA test because Ms. Seuss moved around. The randomness of it shook Kenyatta deeply. Ms. Seuss rolled her eyes at the gossip, claiming she was always the target of rumors. But for the Paynes, the whispers carried weight, and they weren't willing to gamble on a rumor not being true.
Comes up to me and she goes, yeah, well, you're right on a DNA test because she moves around. This lady she knows. I came home and told him, and he told her.
Everybody got something to say about
Right,
her.
but I don't know this lady. You understand? So it's weird for someone to just come up to me out the blue. First of all,
Despite the swirling accusations, Mr. Payne was present at the hospital when Aleliana was born, yet he refused to sign the birth certificate. Ms. Seuss was in tears as she told the court how she had raised her daughter alone. Mr. Payne and his mother insisted otherwise, arguing that their physical proximity within the same housing complex made that impossible. Still, the emotional chasm between them was undeniable.
I've been doing this for so long by myself. It's like, I'm just fed up.
She didn't have to be alone. She chose to. That was on her.
Who was there for me? Because I've been independent for so long, for so many years by myself. I was used to it, so it was like...
Judge Lake pushed Ms. Seuss to open up more about her visible anger and pain. Tears welled up as she admitted how exhausting it was to carry the burden of raising a child alone. She confessed that her years of independence had hardened her, but deep down, she had wished for Mr. Payne's support. But there had been too much arguing, too much toxicity, and too much damage to even allow him near their daughter without risking her peace.
It took you guys 10 months just to do this. Like,
you kept her away, though.
No, I did not. No, I did not.
Don't do that.
But that's
how did I keep her away?
But
how did I keep her away?
You said you told him that I didn't do nothing at all.
Kenyatta tried to paint a fuller picture, describing how close she and Ms. Seuss once were, and how the repeated breakups had strained every relationship in their lives. She emphasized that she had no intention of abandoning Aleliana if the DNA results showed Mr. Payne was the father. However, the lovebirds continued arguing about who was right and who was wrong. It's obvious this is very emotional for both of them.
If I ask you if you need help and you want me to be there and you tell me no, what more can I do?
All right, but when I ask you
to help
when
you
I
out
ask you for
because you
stuff,
don't
it's
wanna,
always a problem.
How is it a problem? How is it a problem? When you just asked
it's a problem.
And what did I do?
Right?
It really is. At last, Judge Lake reached for the envelope containing the DNA results. The courtroom fell silent, the tension at its breaking point. Seuss and Payne leaned forward, years of questions about to be answered in one breathless moment. The judge tore open the envelope and prepared to announce the truth that would either shatter or save what remained between them.
Mr. Payne, you are the father.
Thank you.
I'm happy.
You've brought your mother to court because you claim she committed paternity fraud and lied to you about the identity of your biological father. You were raised believing one man was your father, but are here to prove another is your dad. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
The air between Jessica Seaton and her estranged mother was so thick it could almost be seen. 5 long years had passed since they had last spoken, a silence born from betrayal. Jessica had been raised believing Jesse Seaton was her father, a man who adored her and signed her birth certificate without question. But today, she was here to tear down the lie she said her mother had built.
The reason that I haven't seen her talk to her in almost 5 years is because she's a liar. I was raised to think that a man named Jesse Seaton was my biological father. He signed my birth certificate. He cut my umbilical cord.
Across the room, Teresa McPeak met her daughter's glare with icy defiance. Teresa insisted she had never lied. In her version of events, Jesse Seaton had full faith that he was Jessica's father and had no interest in a paternity test when Jessica was born. Teresa blamed Jessica for being cruel and attention-seeking, describing her as a heartless person who hurt anyone she could.
My daughter doesn't care who she hurts at all. She's a very cold-hearted person, and she just does not care who she hurts.
Have you lied to her about her father?
No. They could have had DNA when I had her, but Jesse and them all didn't want DNA.
The real fracture had emerged during a medical emergency. In 2011, Jessica needed a blood transfusion, and family members rushed to help. But shocking complications arose when neither her grandmother nor her uncle was a match. Jessica said it was the first undeniable crack in her identity, the first clue that everything she had been told was a lie. But Teresa, however, laughed off the incident.
How did you find out about Mr. Bryson at all? How did it ever come up?
Back in 2011, I had complications and I needed a blood transfusion. My mom was supposed to make it to the hospital. She never showed up.
Judge Lake dug deeper into the family history and unearthed a devastating statement from Jessica's grandmother, Karen Hutchins. Karen plainly declared that everyone in their small town knew Teresa had been pregnant by another man, Greg Bryson, when she met Jesse. Karen's letter painted Teresa as a woman desperate to hide her shame, even if it meant robbing Jessica of the truth.
File, and let's go to the statement from your grandmother. It reads, I know my late son Jesse Seaton is not Jessica's father. Everyone in town knows that Teresa was with Greg while she was pregnant. I don't know why Teresa keeps denying it.
For Teresa, everyone was a liar, except her. However, Jessica's pain ran deeper than town gossip or bitter family feuds. The man she knew as her father, Jesse Seaton, had died when she was only 7. He had gone to his grave believing Jessica was his daughter, and Jessica carried the unbearable guilt of that deception. She revealed that her mother had lied about conducting DNA tests.
Jessica, can you talk to me about your relationship with Mr. Seaton?
Well, Jesse died when I was about 7.5. But from what I can remember, he was the perfect man, perfect dad. What hurts me the most is that
Teresa clung to her denial, branding Jessica a liar once again. Judge Lake pushed harder, questioning the timeline of Teresa's relationships with Jesse and Greg. Teresa admitted she had been living with Greg Bryson when she met Jesse Seaton, and that her romantic relationship with Jesse started almost immediately after ending things with Greg. The messy overlap of those relationships suddenly seemed impossible to ignore.
Mr. Bryson and your daughter about a DNA test, Ms. McPeak?
No, everything she just said is a lie. Not one time ever did I tell her that we had DNA. That's a lie. Not one time ever did Greg Bryson even ask.
When Greg Bryson finally entered the courtroom, the mood shifted. Greg didn't hesitate. He was sure Jessica was his daughter. To him, the resemblance alone made it obvious. He recounted how even Jesse's mother had privately admitted Jessica wasn't her son's child. Greg spoke emotionally about the Thanksgiving night he was thrown out of Teresa's house with no warning.
Do you believe you are Miss Seaton's, Jessica's biological father?
Yes, I guarantee you, Your Honor.
You do?
Oh, yes.
Why do you believe that?
Look at her. She looks like my other daughter. I guarantee you, the money I got in my pocket, she's mine.
Greg's voice cracked with fury and heartbreak as he accused Teresa of robbing him of 32 years of fatherhood. He believed she had lied not just once, but over and over while he stood helpless on the sidelines. He explained that with Jesse's name on the birth certificate, there was nothing he could do. The legal system had locked him out, and Teresa's silence had sealed it.
God is my witness. You strike me dead if I am lying. That's a sacked word to me. This is your child. I made a mistake. And I never spoke to her again after that. And it wasn't until this girl got older that I knew for a fact.
Adding to the tangled web, Greg revealed he later learned Teresa had been involved with multiple men during the same time period, not just him and Jesse. He said he uncovered at least 4 other names. The courtroom sat frozen in tension as Judge Lake broke the seal on the envelope, ready to read the results that would finally end the 32-year-old mystery.
The biological father is Mr. Bryson.
Thank you.
Miss Curtis, you have brought your mother, Ms. Hall, to court today because you say she hid the identity of your father from you for 14 years. Now today, there's a man waiting outside of the courtroom that your mother believes could be your biological father.
Miss Curtis stood in the courtroom, facing a truth she had dreaded for years. Her mother, Miss Hall, had kept a devastating secret, allowing her daughter to believe another man was her father for 14 long years. Now, a man named Kirk waited just outside the courtroom, someone who might be her real biological father. Yet, even as she stood there, Miss Curtis still wasn't sure.
My grandmother, she sat me down and she said that she wanted to tell me the truth about who my father really is to be, and that my mother has been lying to me for the past years of my life, which was time was 14 years old, and that the man at the time was not my father.
Miss Hall didn't fight the accusation. She admitted in front of the judge that she had let her daughter grow up believing another man was her father, all while knowing it wasn't true. She had promised herself she would one day tell Miss Curtis everything, but the truth spilled out too soon, forced into the open when a family member, tired of the secret, revealed it without her permission.
Moving on, I wound up meeting another guy, which was the alleged father that I told her that was her father, and allowed her to grow up believing that that was her father because that was what we had discussed.
The confession from her grandmother came with a warning: never speak of it unless her mother confessed first. Miss Hall tried to explain herself. She was only 15 when she got pregnant, naive and unsure. She had met a man named Kirk, fast-living, exciting, everything her young heart found thrilling. But confusion and inexperience clouded her judgment.
Actually, Your Honor, I knew one day that I would have to sit real down and talk to her and let her know who her father is. The time that I set forth for her was at the age of 16.
At the age of 16?
Miss Curtis recalls school events like the father-daughter dance and moments she sat out while her friends smiled at their dads. Her voice cracks as she describes how even though her mother was present, it never filled the void a missing father left behind. Miss Hall defends herself, insisting that she has provided a home, support, and education, but none of it, Miss Curtis points out, could replace the yearning she had carried for years.
I didn't want her to be a victim of that.
She wanted to live the rest of her childhood life through me. She wanted me to do the things that she wasn't able to do.
Judge Lake leaned in, emphasizing to Miss Hall that this wasn't just about survival, it was about emotional needs a child can't ignore. Miss Hall argued that Miss Curtis did have a father figure in the home, her husband at the time, but even that relationship was hollow. Miss Curtis always sensed something wasn't right, always told not to ask your daddy for anything, like a wall was built between them.
Been to the father-daughter. I could only imagine everybody getting ready at school and chattering and talking about father-daughter dance, and you saying to yourself, well, I guess that's somewhere I can't go.
Well, actually, Your Honor.
After the secret came to light, Miss Curtis wasted no time. She tracked Kirk Whitaker, the potential father, down, writing letters to him while he was serving time in prison. But Miss Hall found one of the letters and hid it. Still, the letter was mailed by someone else, and soon Kirk responded, offering to be the father Miss Curtis deserved.
The same night that me and my nana, we had the discussion and we found out where he was, then I started to write letters and everything.
Excuse me, Your Honor. When all the rumors and everything was speculating,
Miss Hall stood on the stand, saying she had always intended to tell her daughter the truth, but on her terms, at the right time. Miss Curtis, holding back tears, didn't buy it. Children don't get to choose when they need a parent. They feel the loss every day, and it was clear she wasn't about to let her mother rewrite that history to make herself the victim.
State he's willing to be the father she needs and deserves, and it's signed Kirk.
and Your Honor, I know you may not understand how I feel about this right here, but that's where I feel like I was deceived and crossed.
As the tension reached its peak, the courtroom doors opened and Mr. Whitaker entered. He moved with hesitation, his face guarded. When asked if he believed he was Miss Curtis's father, his answer wasn't the emotional declaration anyone had hoped for. Instead, he admitted his doubts, standing there uncertain but willing to find out.
Do you believe you're Miss Curtis's father?
Well, Your Honor, I'm actually somewhat doubtful. And having said that, it's because the way the situation went down. When Tamika initially told me, hey, I'm pregnant, you're the father.
Judge Lake reached for the envelope containing the DNA results, the entire courtroom holding its breath. The years of secrets, lies, and missed chances had all led to this moment. Judge Lake nodded solemnly, knowing the time for speculation was over. She picked up the envelope containing the DNA results and tore it open.
Mr. Whitaker, you are her father. Mr. Pace, you say you will be crushed today if DNA results reveal you are not the biological father of your son, Prince.
Yes, Your Honor.
Byron Pace stood stiffly in the courtroom, his hands clenching the sides of the stand. His future, his friendships, and the bond he shared with a bright-eyed little boy named Prince all hung in the balance. Today, the truth would be laid bare. Either he was Prince's biological father, or he had been living a painful lie.
So there is a lot on the line for me. That's my little man. We watch TV together. I'm feeding him cereal in the morning. He's like my real little buddy, and he looks up to me, and I don't want to let him down, basically.
Byron remembered the day they met as if it had been yesterday. It was a scorching afternoon, and she was walking down the street in short shorts that immediately caught his eye. He had pulled over, struck up a conversation, and by the end of the day, they were exchanging numbers. Things had moved fast. Soon, she was living with him and Randolph, and not long after that, she was pregnant.
Well, I was actually driving. It was a hot day. She had on short shorts. I'm a leg man.
Okay.
So I pulled over, actually, and we had a conversation. I ended up getting her phone number. We went out on a few dates. We kind of bonded real quick.
The court dug deeper into the timeline. The night of the mistake was hazy, clouded by alcohol and regret. Byron wasn't home. He was out working. Miss Fobbs was home, lonely and frustrated, convinced that Byron's late nights meant he was being unfaithful. Randolph was there to listen. Talking led to touching, and one thing led to another.
Necessarily call it a love triangle because the situation with me and Randolph only happened once. Upon me being in the house with Byron, the thing is he works at night, so he's never really home with me.
Nope. Just work and trust issues. The moment Byron found out was burned into his memory. They had been arguing, loud, ugly, and emotional, when Miss Fobbs suddenly blurted out that Randolph might be Prince's father. Byron's whole world tilted in that instant. His son, his best friend, and his girlfriend, everything he loved and trusted, were twisted together in a knot of betrayal.
How did you find out that she slept with your best friend?
Well, that's interesting. We were actually in a heated argument at the time that it occurred, but it kind of just got blurted out to me that
when they met, Byron kept his emotions in check, but his hands shook as he asked the question that haunted him. Had Randolph slept with Miss Fobbs? Randolph didn't deny it. He said yes. The two men agreed that they needed to find out the truth for Prince's sake. No matter what had happened between the adults, the little boy deserved to know who his real father was.
Kind of all agreed, me and him agreed that we definitely needed to find out what was going on as far as the DNA of...
So when you met Mr. Randolph, you asked him point blank, have you slept with Miss Fobbs?
Yes, I did.
The judge was puzzled and turned to his best friend for answers. Randolph admitted openly that they had slept together, but claimed he had been too drunk to even remember whether protection was used. One mistake, one night, and now two best friends found themselves pitted against each other in the most painful way imaginable.
Wasn't in the right state of mind. We both was intoxicated. You know, he was out promoting clubs. He used to come home from the club intoxicated and, you know, looking for him. He's not there. Me and her talk and talk and...
The court examined photos submitted by Randolph, comparing pictures of himself as a child with those of Little Prince. Randolph pointed out similarities, maybe the forehead, maybe the mouth, but Byron wasn't buying it. When Miss Fobbs was asked if she saw a resemblance, she was firm. No. To her, Prince looked more like Byron.
You submitted to the court a childhood photo of yourself
Yes.
and Prince.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you think you look pretty much exactly alike?
Little characteristics, forehead maybe, mouth, but
Miss Fobbs explained that she had carried the secret for years, struggling with guilt and fear. It had been eating her alive. She didn't want Prince to grow up with lies, but she didn't know how to break the news. The fight that led to her confession hadn't been planned. It had just exploded out of her, raw and messy. She admitted it wasn't the right way to reveal the truth, but once the words were out, there was no taking them back. Now, she could only hope for forgiveness and pray that the DNA test would bring relief instead of more pain.
I do want my son to know who his father is. I don't want to hold that secret, and it was something that was weighing heavy on me. So maybe it wasn't the right approach for me to give it to him at that way, but I just feel like now we're at the point of no returns.
Now, the future rested inside a thin envelope clutched in the judge's hand. Byron's heart thundered as he watched her carefully break the seal. This was the moment. Years of loyalty, betrayal, and confusion all narrowed down to one sheet of paper. Would it confirm Byron's worst fears, or would it give him back the life he was desperate to protect?
Mr. Pace, you are not his father. Continuing on with the next result. Mr. Randolph, you are not